Hi, my name's Prumihimo. For many years I have specialised in using Kumihimo braiding techniques to make beautiful jewellery, and what I'd like to do is show you some of the things I've learnt along the way, some of the tips and tricks that I believe make Kumihimo braiding really successful. And in this video I'd like to go right back to basics and show you how to make the basic round braid, or you may have come across it called Congo gumi, on the round foam disc. You'll be able to make all sorts of beautiful jewellery with it, simple bracelets, necklaces to hang your favourite pendants from, and you'll be able to have a lot of fun with it. So it's well worth getting the basics right so that you start on your Kumihimo journey in the correct fashion. So let's start with the disc. Well, they come in a huge range of sizes and shapes, even colours, and thicknesses as well. What you need to be aware of though, for this particular braid, you need a disc that is basically round or possibly octagonal in shape. And for the braiding that we're going to do here, you probably need the thinner thickness. You don't need the extra thickness. The hole size in the middle, none of that matters, because basically the disc's purpose is to separate the cords for you and to help you identify which cords to move. The actual braid is created by your hand movements and the cord movements. So once you've got your disc, then let's look at the cord you need. Now, you can use anything you want to pretty much to make Kumihimo, as long as it bends and is in the tolerance of about 0.5 to 2 or 3 millimeters in diameter. You're going to be able to braid with it. Think of fancy yarns with slubs and bobbles on, leather, waxed cord, hemp, ribbon, chain, wire. Really, sky's the limit. But for this particular video, I want to show you how to use satin cord, or you may have come across it called rat tail. And the reason we're going to use this is it has a nice firm texture and it has a very smooth slippery surface. So this means that it's easy to braid with, but also it's easy to spot your mistakes, and that is very important. So before we get started, I'd just like to say a few words about quantities. The general rule for Kumihimo is that whatever length you want your braid to be, you multiply that by 3 and use that for each cord in your braid. So for instance, if I want my braid to be 20 centimeters, I need each cord to be 60 centimeters. I'm going to be showing you how to do the 8 cord round braid. So that means I need 4 meters 80 to achieve that 20 centimeter braid. Now, you're actually going to find that's quite a generous allowance. And the reason for this is that it's virtually impossible to add in extra cord if you run out. It certainly will be visible in some way or other. So my recommendation is that you keep careful notes. Take a note of what you start with, take a note of what you finish with. If you find you have a bit more cord than you need, carry on braiding to the end. That little extra bit of braid can be snipped off, put to one side and used for other projects. And I've got future videos to show you how to use those little offcuts. So, off we go. So, here's our disc. You may notice I've written satin cord on mine, and the reason for this is very important. Once you use a thicker cord, like satin cord, on a disc, you will find that the slots become slightly stretched, so you'll not be able to use this disc effectively for thinner cords. So I strongly recommend marking your discs to show what you've used them for. My disc has 32 numbered slots, but we don't actually need the numbers for this particular braid. So I'm going to turn the disc over. And what I've done is I've just marked 4 dots in the north, south, east and west positions on my disc. And I find this is less distracting for people when they're learning how to braid. So I'm going to take my satin cords. Here I am using 60 centimetres. For this sort of length, I probably won't need to use any bobbins or anything. And the way you put your cords onto your disc is you tie them all in a knot at one end, then hold the disc, the knot, in the middle of the hole in the disc, holding your disc with your thumb and keeping the knot steady with your fingers underneath, and then just put the cords in the slots. Now I've got two colours here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one colour opposite in the north and south positions and the other colour opposite in the east and west positions. And then what I want to do is centre that knot up on my disc. I want to tighten the cords. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to braid with my disc flat. I'm going to keep those cords nice and tight. I'm going to keep the knot in the middle of the hole and level with the face of the disc. And ideally, I want to be braiding so that my cords can hang freely underneath. I have a table underneath, so you'll see they will be gathering up below the disc, but it's much better to be able to braid with them hanging freely. Then the final issue is the weight. What I like to do is attach a weight to the knot underneath. Now, this is a matter of personal preference. You can simply hold the knot with your fingers underneath. And either way is acceptable. I personally like to use a weight. Here, because this is a fairly thin satin cord, I'm using a 50-gram weight. I could use a heavier weight, 100 gram, and that particularly if I'm using a very tight new disc and using slightly thicker cords. For the purposes of demonstration, I'm going to work without a disc to show you the moves. Without a weight. So now we're ready to get started. And just to recap, this is round braid or Congo gumi with 8 cords. The moves we're going to do are quite simply top to bottom, bottom to top, rotate. Now the cords we're going to use are the top right cord and the bottom left cord. And I strongly recommend that these are the cords you move. You may see other instructions where you use different cords, top left and bottom right. This will produce a slightly different sort of braid with the spiral going in the opposite direction. And this is something you may wish to learn in the future. But at this stage, I strongly recommend that you stick to the basic, because this means that you'll be able to follow all sorts of lovely patterns and designs that you'll find on the internet. Now, what we're going to do is we're simply going to lift the top right cord and bring it down to the bottom right slot. Then we're going to lift the bottom left cord and bring it up to the top left slot. Now, these cords actually don't cross each other. You may see other instructions where you do it the other way round. You start with bottom left and then you do top right. Well, that's exactly the same thing, so don't worry about that. You do whichever you're most comfortable with. However, for my demonstrations, I will be using top right and bottom left. Now you need to rotate the disc. You can rotate in either direction. It doesn't actually make a difference. If I rotate the disc anti-clockwise, I come to this set of cords. If I rotate the disc clockwise, I come to the same set of cords. And I've just explained that it doesn't matter whether you do top or bottom first because the cords don't cross. However, my recommendation is that you rotate in an anti-clockwise direction. And the reason for this is that this is the way the majority of Kumihimo braiders braid. So you will be falling in line with patterns that you're able to find on the internet. Also, you may wish to use more cords than 8. And then it does start to matter which way you rotate. So it's best to be doing it the same way as everyone else. So I've done my top down, bottom up. Now I'm going to rotate. And I come round to the next pair of chords. And I do exactly the same thing. Top down, bottom up, rotate. Top down, bottom up, rotate. Top down, bottom up, rotate, and so forth. When you're learning, it's important to be very consistent, so keep turning in that same direction. Now, what happens if you need to take a break? What I suggest you do is stop when you have 3 chords at the bottom, because you'll know, however you put your disc down, you'll know where you are. You'll know your next move is this one. So that's a good habit to get into. And as you work, you'll find that a beautiful braid is forming underneath. Let's have a look. Small, but perfectly formed. The great thing about Kumihimo is that you really get into the rhythm of braiding. So carry on braiding until your braid reaches approximately the right length. What I'd like to show you quickly is what happens if you forget to put your 3rd chord at the bottom and stop then. If you look very closely at the point of braiding, you can see which 2 chords were last to be moved. And in this case, they were the purple ones, because I can see purple is over the beige chord there and there. So I know that this chord and this chord were the last to be moved. So that means my next move is going to be rotating, and it's going to be this chord and this chord. The other thing I'd like to point out is that the chords are in a slightly different shape. So the last chords to be moved, in the purple pair, the chords here are in a sort of U shape compared to much more of a V shape here. So it's important to look at this part, which is called the point of braiding, to understand how your braid really works, so that you will be able to just pick up your disc at any time, work out which the last chords were to be used, and you will know which chord to use next. And it doesn't matter which of these 2 chords you use first, as I explained. So now we come on to the length of the braid. While you're braiding, you'll be making a beautiful braid like this. But you do need to give it a little bit of a stretch for those chords to settle down into their permanent positions. And you can do this either while it's still on the disc or once you've taken it off. So I'm going to show it here on the disc. And all you need to do is pinch the braid at the end, give it one firm tug. And did you see how that really moved? Then I'm going to let it relax back into position. So don't make any final decisions about how long you want your braid to be. Don't do any cutting of braids until you've done that one stretch. It's just the one stretch you need. Because this is a textile, there'll always be a certain amount of give in the braid, but nothing like that first stretch. So now, for taking the braid off the disc, the easiest way is simply to pinch the braid from underneath, remove the cords from the slots, like that, all of them, remove the disc, and then tie an overhand knot that nips the end of the braid. So like this, I'm running it round my fingers, I'm pulling it through, and I'm making sure that that knot forms right on the end of the braid. And then you can just tighten up on each cord individually to neaten up that knot, though it will actually be snipped off. Once that knot is in position, your braid is safe and it's not going to unravel. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that and you feel confident to make your own beautiful braids. The pattern I've shown you is the spiral pattern. But there are many other things you can have fun with. So how about some of these on my stand here? All these different patterns are just made by changing the positioning of the cords. So I'm going to give you an example of that. To make a bracelet like this with sort of spots on, what you need to do is have your contrast colour in diagonally opposite slots. So there and there, and that will give you the spot pattern. And I suggest you have a play around with different positionings for yourself to see what you really like. As for finishing your braid off into a bracelet, you'll need to look at one of my other videos. And I have a video showing you how to use glued on ends and also how to wire on ends. So take a look at those. If you've enjoyed this video, feel free to comment on it. But don't forget to subscribe, because that means you'll be notified of when I post any further videos. And I've got lots of different ideas to show you, covering all different aspects of Kumihimo, both on the disc, square plate and the Prumihimo disc. So there's so much to explore, and I'm looking forward to taking you through it. Bye.